People Strategy Forum podcast. We're a show that guides leaders to elevate the workplace overall. And we believe that people are at the heart of successful organizations. A team member's well being, the rewards, career development is all essential to a happy, healthy, and highly productive workforce. So, this show discusses the practical and effective leadership strategies for executives, senior professionals, and talent managers overall. Now, today we have a couple of our hosts with us today. We have Howard Niswitz. Howard is a seasoned compensation and people strategist and with a lot of experience in large organizations and so forth. And then we also have Sumit Singla. Sumit Singla is broadcasting out of India. He has a substantial experience in people strategies, and he's known as the culture guy. So we're pleased to have Sumit with us today. And today's topic is we're going to dive into integrated talent management. So it's aligning business needs with the talents of your people. And we are privileged to have André Blom with us. He's the visionary co-founder of the TMA method. And André has reshaped talent management by emphasizing the untapped potential within organizations and advocating for strategies that closely align individual capabilities with business goals overall. And so his extensive experience in organizational development, business consulting, people strategy, and social innovation, André has been a catalyst for creating environments where continuous improvement and employee engagement are not just encouraged, but embedded into the culture. So join us as André shares his invaluable insights on harnessing the collective power of your workforce and the achievements overall. So welcome, André.
Thank you, Sam, for your nice introduction.
So let's just start with a little bit of background, André, and how you got to where you are today. Uh, what really created you to develop the TMA method and really drive change in the market here?
Actually, we have to go back around 25 years in my career. At that point, I was working for a international staffing company, and we were doing all kinds of projects where we worked with highly professional, skilled persons in the sector of IT, engineers. And what we discovered, or the feedback that we got from our clients, is that they're always a little bit surprised what the candidate could actually do. And they said, but the candidate itself doesn't give words to that. He is not really framing or informing us what the real potential of this individual is. And we thought, like, maybe we can help these individuals and also our business, so that the people that we would staff would present themselves in a better way. Instead of that I talk about them, that he would do it himself. And from that perspective, you start to explore what's on the market. Are there any tools? And of course, then immediately you get into the field of assessments. And what I kind of explored or discovered, just as you want to mention it, to name it, all the assessment tools were actually designed to talk about people. And if you look at the reports, the outcome, and most of the assessments are really solid. They are scientifically proven, well researched, they are really solid. But what we noticed is that the individual got a report, and he was actually only interested in, am I in or am I out? And the wording that was used was not something that really helped the candidate to give words to his own contribution, to his own personality. And so I explored a little bit the market, and I found my two partners, and I said, like, can you design an assessment tool that is written for the individual, so that the individual has more self-determination, gives words to himself when he's going for a job? And then the business started to run. They thought it was a good idea, and then we got into the market. And of course, we had to develop more than just the individual assessment. Um, what we also thought, like, how can we help the candidate to create the right context for him or her to blossom? Just imagine that you are a manager and you have 5 or 10 people or even 15 people on board. They're all individuals. They all have their own needs. So can we expect from a manager that he really understands how people click and tick? Or should we say, like, as an individual, you are also responsible of explaining what is the context, what are the circumstances, what are the conditions where I can really blossom and have an optimal contribution to the job that I'm executing. So from that point, we started to develop the whole talent management solution as we are now. And then, in the beginning, of course, we also had the digital reports. But from a starting point, we always said, like, this is static. It's nice to know how do I click and tick? What are my conditions? But that is also something that is, I think, related to talent management. It is also talent development. And from that point on, we thought, like, we have to make it more interactive. We have to have more adaptive content, information that we can actually share with the clients and with the managers and how to connect them. So this is where we are now, where we
So it
have
sounds
founded a good fundament that people do not look in an instrumental way to each other, but really in business in a fundamental different way, not as an asset, but as an added value. That's how we
so
look at people. Yeah.
yeah. So it sounds like the TMA method overall is focused around having those great conversations with our people to understand them better and so forth. What is your the core tenets around the TMA method?
Sorry, I couldn't understand you, Sam.
So
Can
what
you
are
repeat?
what are the core ideas around surrounding the TMA method? It sounds like it's a lot about communication and ensuring that you're having a healthy dialogue with your people.
Yeah. Well, the first core is, as an individual, you have a certain obligation to understand yourself. And in the world that we are living, you hear a lot about others, how they think about you. And that is, in most of the time, constraining people. Think about how we think about our schooling systems. When you're a bright young kid, you come in, you're curious, you want to explore, and we funnel you down to certain kind of expertise. And that is maybe nice, and for some it's really good, but for a lot of people it is constraining. We did a lot of review and we asked people, are you happy on the job, or do you really feel that you contribute? And they said, yes, we contribute. Are you contributing what you really can, or are you contributing on what you need to do? And that is staggering. A lot of people are saying, I'm only doing what I have to do, not what I'm able to do. So from that point on, one of our core elements of talent management is that you as an individual really understand or learn to understand yourself in what you're good at, what your preferences are, what you like to do, what you're able to do, where your potential is lying, what kind of conditions you need in order to blossom and to grow. So one of our core elements is the me. How do I look at myself? Do I really understand the talents? And do I understand what the difference between a talent and a skill is? Because I might be skilled, but to a certain extent, but is that also where I'm talented for? Or are there differentiations to find? Or can I go into another direction? So that is the first part. We call it personal talent management. You really have to understand how you tick and click and what your conditions are in
And
order to
so
be successful. Yeah.
And so one thing, just to draw more clarity between skills and talents. So basically, a person might have the knowledge and the ability, or the knowledge to be able to do something, but that really the skill is to be able to apply it effectively. Is that correct?
Yeah. What we say is like, you have a kind of preference, consciously or unconsciously, in what you prefer to do, and that is derived from your personality. And then there's something like your cognitive capability. And then there is something like, is there an intrinsic motivation for you to do things, or is it extrinsic? Do you have to do the things, or do you want to do the things? And the nice thing is, if you have to do things, but it's coming from your intrinsic motivation, there you have not only engagement, but there you have ownership. And then adding on the talents, your values and your cognitive capabilities, you need knowledge and you need experience. And that whole spectrum of these elements are defining your skills. So when we talk about talents and skills, we say like, there are a couple of layers that defines your skills. And we're still looking at the individual. But the question is, if you have the potential and the right drive and the right motivation and the right knowledge and the nice experience, the right experience, does it mean that you're an A performer? And I would say, per definition, no, because the conditions and the context wherein you're working is also very important. And we have seen this through life, right? You see that it's easy to say like you're an A employee in terms of sales by company Alpha. You switch over to company Beta, and all of a sudden, you're not a high performer anymore. Why is that? Sometimes I use the example of Messi. He was brilliant in Barcelona, but what a struggle in the Argentina team. Did he lose his skills or his motivation or his talents? I don't think so. But the context and the conditions that he had to work with were different, and therefore he could not blossom. And I think that is really important to know and to understand as a company, that people are not just a mechanism, not an instrument, not a commodity, but they are a human resource, a unique resource that is able to adapt, to be creative, to be inventive, to collaborate, to communicate. And that is what we need in our business. It's not that only the few happy senior leaders are the core of the success of a company. It is the whole configuration of people, the whole setup, the whole collaboration of people that is making a success, right?
Yeah, and I liked what you brought up a moment earlier about, you can find a person that is successful in one environment, but then when you bring them over to another environment, they may not be as successful. I mean, it's really you need to understand a person's unique talents in the environment that they thrive in, and
Yeah,
understand that.
yeah, fully agree. And another thing, if I come into an organization just as an employee, and this is how I visualize it, right? I have my merits, I am who I am, and I'm pretty aware of who I am and how I click and tick. But if I want to be successful in my job or the role that I get, there's something that brings me there. Because if I have to, let's say, drive in the way that I've always done it, then I'm not getting any further. I go from A to B, but there's no innovation. I will, at the end of my journey, I will be obsolete. Why? Because I'm not learning anymore. So I think the bridge between me as an individual and being successful in a, let's call it a sustainable way, then the learning is so important. And this is also I think one of the objectives of leading people, if you want to do that, when do you allow them to lead and when do you allow them and help them to follow? Because if you are leading and following, this is where you will learn. Because if you only follow, you will not learn if you never are allowed to lead. And if I can lead on my experience and I have an environment where there is a continuous dialogue, and for me, a dialogue is an exchange of perspectives, an exchange of experience so that we can both lift ourselves, right? This is what you do in a dialogue. Then I can be successful for the longer run from my personal perspective. And I also think that's if I blossom, part of my company will blossom too. So for me, talent management is knowing how you tick as an individual and what you need in order to learn, because then you can be successful.
And I think that's an important call out when we think about leaders nowadays. There's we need to think of almost like a reverse mentoring. I mean, we need to understand what our strengths are and how we can help people as a leader. And then also we need to think of our people and understand the unique skills and knowledge that they bring to the organization and how that might help us develop. Now,
Yeah.
Howard, have you in your experience with like when working at in large investment banking and so forth? I mean, do you often see that collaborative nature between leadership or manager and subordinate?
When I first entered the industry, I would say no. It was very much, managers controlling employees and directing employees and not really caring much about what employees were thinking as long as things were getting done. But that, of course, has changed over the years. But I think there's still some reluctance in terms of embracing the full human being in the workplace. Let's face it, managers are under a lot of pressure to deliver. And sometimes they're just thinking that straight line of, get me from A to B. And I think the human interface interaction is definitely complex, and it's something that challenges them. So certainly any tools that can be provided to facilitate that are great, but there has to be also some push to managers that, yes, this is part of your responsibilities, your day-to-day responsibilities.
I fully agree with you, Howard. It's also about, the mindset. The mindset is to be okay. Because if you look at, probably we all have a little bit of experience. When you start as an employee, you look up, you want to become a manager. Not everybody, but some do. And this is the process. You first start in your job with socializing. You want to be part of the group. You want to be included. You want to be seen. And if you want to be seen and you want to make a career, you're not speaking out everything because you are politically correct, because you want to have that position, right? And then comes the second phase. And maybe Summit can say something about that too. Then you feel like you become an authority. You know how the business is done. You think that you are capable of understanding what is good and what is right for the company. So you get into some kind of self-authorization.
Right.
And then if people are starting to talk to you, you want to maintain that authority that you have given yourself. So when there are issues, you have the tendency of saying, I know how it works. Do it like this. I've seen this before. We have a new system. This will not work. I'm reluctant.
Right.
And, to help management to get out of that, what I would call a fixed mindset, that is the flip coin, right? On self-authorization. I know everything best. Nothing can take me off my rock. And then, we need to help leaders to get the mindset of what we call self-transformation, where they say, I am an authority. I've proven that. These are my merits. But in order to get further, I need to learn what I know to others and vice versa. Because learning together, that will bring the organization further. And leadership is a lot of times confused with the hierarchy of the position.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would say, like, maybe you should have a hierarchy of talents, or a hierarchy of dialogue, or a hierarchy of who knows best, who is the best equipped, who has the best talents in order to take a lead. Of course, I understand that for the legislation of an organization, you need a hierarchy. Somebody needs to be accountable for the total package. But I believe that everybody has a responsibility to take leadership, to take ownership of what we're doing together, reach out to people, help, collaborate. If you collaborate, you learn the most.
Right.
If you are single, you don't. And that is also what I see in management on different layers. They don't reach out to each other on the peer level. Can you help me out? Because it's actually saying something about, I am actually not the authority.
Right.
I don't know everything. And if I'm reaching out to my peers, they might think that I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of things can change if we help leaders to have the right mindset. And if you talk to leaders about it, I think I don't have the right number. We didn't do any research about it. But in my own experience, if you talk to them in this way, 80-90% is acknowledging this. I'm not reaching out to my fellow peer leaders to ask for questions. We are not really collaborating,
Mm-hmm.
not allowing my people to blossom in the right way. Because I have no time, I don't have the attention, I don't have the tools, the instruments. That is what I hear from companies.
Yeah.
So, Andre, you're talking about like a skill-based or talent-based organization. So, what can managers do to shift to a skill-based or talent-based type of organization? What are the first steps?
I don't want to sound fluffy, Sam, but it is looking with human eyes to your human fellow co-workers and start a dialogue. Do you really know where they are getting the energy from? Do you really know why they are not engaged, or maybe engaged but not really taking ownership? So, of course you can say, like, start with having the assessment tools and blah, blah, blah. But I think first it starts with the dialogue. Like in the family, do you need in your family when one of your kids is not doing well, or between you and your spouse or your partner? What do you do? Are you going for instruments, or are you having a dialogue? And one of the things that works in the way human relationships works is, I am good, you are good. Without any prejudice, we have a talk. What can we do together? And there I would say, like, this is what I call the 3 Fs, the acronym. Be fair, be friendly, be firm. It's okay as a leader to say, this is what I expect from you. But do that with kindness, with friendliness, and make sure that you have an open dialogue. And if the candidate is not willing, not able, or doesn't have the talents, you have to be firm and say, sorry, this is not your job. Then, in my team, you cannot add any value. Can I look for another position for you? Instead of letting people do things where it's draining them, where they get sour. They're sitting there, I'm here for my paycheck. That's not what you want, right? Yeah. So that would be my first step. Take the time. And that is already a challenge for a lot of management, as Howard was saying. We're running behind our Excel sheets, our reports. We're all very busy. 80% of the job is about getting my things done, running to meetings. How much time do I really spend with my people?
Do you think there has to be more focus on managers being held responsible for development of their team members? I mean, is that what's missing? that?
Well, due respect to the phenomena of HR, if you look at history, from scientific management, with the McKinseys, the Coveys,
Mhm.
HR and management actually has never come together.
Mhm.
And if you see how HR is positioned in the organization, you could say like, first priority for HR could be, you have to make sure that there is a workforce up to speed in order to deliver the business. That would be the first objective, right?
Mhm.
The second objective would be make sure that your workforce is happy. There is well-being.
Mhm.
And then the third could be, as HR, if you are a responsible company, to make sure that there's societal welfare within the framework of what you're able to do. Maybe in a small community where your business is situated. Anyway, that could be the position. What we see now is that HR is fragmented. We have a department learning and development. We have a department recruiting. We have a department compensation and benefit. We have all kinds of good initiatives. I'm not saying, but you can see it's not integrated. And the connection between HR and line management and the workforce, there is not really a synergy. There is not really an understanding. So what we see is that let's say human development, the social cohesion within a team, the professional cohesion in a team is leaning a lot on the shoulders of line management, where HR is trying to build strategies and offering systems, but you can see the reluctance of line management in order to use it or to implement it. So you see that actually a lot of businesses are leaning over, finding a new leverage, and bringing human talent management more on the shoulders and the hands and the responsibility of line management. Just to give you a small example of, maybe you know the company Philips.
Yes.
They are also in the medical industry. They have delivered the apnea device, and there's a threat of a big claim from the United States because the device has had some problems. They had to fire 6,000 people in order to take measurements so that they can actually afford themselves to pay off the claim. They started in EMEA in Europe with 22,000, and they had 80 HR people on board for 22,000 people, and now they are going down to 40. How can 40 people work individually with 16,000 people? Impossible. Impossible. So where do you go with your human resource management, if that's the core? So you have to think also about scalable way. And I think in the day-to-day interaction between people, managers can make it more labor extensive if they also pairing up people. Just think about it, what it does to you. If you are responsible for your coworker and the other way around in terms of, or partly responsible, let's work together. If you have a little bit of a day off, I will support you so that your performance doesn't go down. I'm craving to develop this, and you also. Why don't we unite? Why don't we help each other and provide feedback to our leaders? Why don't we step up together and let's take this responsibility and share our innovative ideas that we have in the day-to-day operation? So as a leader, as a as a line manager, you can do so much by activating your people. And that is something HR is never and has never been capable of doing.
Right. Nor should
So
it. Really, really, the onus really falls on the management team to take that responsibility on. With HR, not owning it, but facilitating it so that the line managers own the process, they own the development. They go to HR as a resource where they need to find, training programs or, whatever else they need to support it, not HR owning it. And I think that's the problem in too many organizations.
Can I go a little bit more in depth, Howard?
Sure.
It is not only line management who is owning it. Think about a cell. A team is a cell of individuals, different skills. The team owns the performance. The team owns, they have to do it together.
Right.
And that a frontline manager saying like, we all have responsibilities, and that I'm accountable for the welfare and the performance of our team. Fine enough. That is my position. I'm paid for that. But it doesn't mean he is responsible for everything. Maybe he has in his team somebody who's extremely good in de-escalating when it comes to the social cohesion in a team. Why don't you ask that person instead of trying to get out of your own comfort zone and doing it? I think, as frontline managers, if you show, I have a certain kind of authority, but also my coworker has it and everybody has it. How can I make sure that we collaborate in the right way?
Yeah.
We have seen this working, and then the results are amazing when you think about absence leave or sick rates or performance indicators or productivity. When you feel that you are, as an individual, I belong here. I feel that I am valued. I feel that I can contribute, from my energy, from my talents, from who I am. I don't have to be somebody else.
Maybe we have to borrow more from sports teams because they definitely have it together.
Oh, this is how it works in sport teams.
Right.
This is not rocket science.
No.
Right.
But,
it's important.
Henry Ford was amazing in his time, right? He managed to build a car in no time, where people were just like mechanisms, right? And one of the statements was like, I need muscles, but unfortunately, they take the brains with them. And nowadays, if you think about the technology that is available, we need so much to tap into the human skills in humanity. I work, for example, a lot with AI to capture my thoughts, to frame it in a model, to even to produce text for my lectures or text for my e-learning content. But if I just rely on the AI, it comes out that sometimes it's kind of hallucinating. It's a little bit fluffy. It's not me. But when I put my effort in it and I talk to others, and this is how I think, and how can we make it in a better way, then AI is so useful. But without my human touch, I consider it as worthless. So we can think about technology as much as we want, but we need the human aspect to it. We need to humanize our business. The scientific management structure of Taylor is outdated. It will not bring us into the new era. Now I'm preaching. I'm sorry.
I just find that a fascinating parallel, that irregardless of if we're talking to an artificial intelligence or human, interaction is needed to ensure that we get the best result, to ensure that we're challenging ideas and having a dialogue. And so I think that's a good call out that you mentioned there, Andre. That's similar between AI and humans, is that we need to have that dialogue regardless, so that we take that human nature and our intelligence and ensure that we're putting things in the right frame set for better understanding. Now, just I would love to hear your point of view, Sumit, as when we're thinking about culture and the importance of dialogue overall. Is there aspects that what Andre is saying, does that make sense in around the world as far as what we're looking at in India and so forth?
So I'll say, if you're if you're an HR person, what Andre is saying makes absolutely perfect sense. I don't think other departments evolved yet to be able to appreciate the need for dialogue, culture, talent management. So some leaders and founders still think of these things warm, fuzzy, intangible, and getting them to see the light can be a slightly more experience. In fact, that's one question I have for Andrea, which is at what stage should an organization think about integrated talent management, and what's a good way to influence a founder or a CEO that this is something that's the sense, or I mean, everybody's fond of thinking business models and ROI. How do one get
So,
ROI on
so,
talent?
so
I'm sorry,
Sumit,
your voice is interrupted all the time. It's really hard to understand your question.
so I think that maybe I could reframe this for Sumit, Andre. So first of all, let's define what does integrated talent manager or integral talent management mean? One, that's the first part of the question, and then the second part of the question is when should a business uh, think about bringing this together and talent management together? And this is there a certain size or phase that a business should be thinking about when they bring this together?
Let me start with the easy question, and that is the last one. When do you start? What I see in like startups, then startups are really people driven. They are not constrained by any form of process or rigid ISO certificate. They do things together. They are dialoguing. They are having stand-ups. They're doing it in a very agile way, right? And then they come to a point where they come out of the incubation and they need to scale up. And then the processes start. And then they need another layer of management. And I think that is when you're a startup company, that is the point where you really have to think like, how do we look at the value of our company? We came from all these bright ideas of people. How can we maintain that? So that is a good starting point when you're starting to think about scaling up, because you will need different management layers. So if you have a very flat organization, a small bakery, you have the informal talent management because you work daily with each other. You have an understanding. I mean, it would almost be like a small family. And I would ask you, Sam, do you conduct talent management in your family? I'm sure you are. You don't
Yes,
need this.
that's right. It's not such a mechanistic way, but of course we're constantly working with people, regardless of if it's family or business.
Yeah. So for me, as soon as there is a extra management layer in an organization, you need talent management. Because then you are not into day-to-day interaction with your people anymore. And you have to figure it out. What are their thoughts? What is their innovative power? So that is, I think, the easiest part. And so every company that is listening now, did you install talent management? I would say like, and excuse my French, and I'm allowed to do that because I'm Dutch. We're always very straightforward. Start right now. Otherwise you'd be too late. We're talking so many times about the war on talents. And if you don't have talent management, how can you attract talent management, right? And of course, there is a lot about talent management. Is it inclusive? Is it exclusive? If it's the skill or is it the potential? What I see as talent management is the two things that I just said before. Who am I? How do I tick and click? What do I need? I need to have an understanding. And if people cannot give words to that, you have to help them because you need to understand them. And who do I mean with you? That is not only the manager, but that is also your peer, the co-worker you're sitting next to on the desk. He also has to understand how you work and vice versa. So this is a learning process. Do we understand each other? What can we, it's coming from both sides. What can I learn from you and what can you learn from me? I hope I'm not offline now because I see, there you're back again. Was I offline? No. Okay. So talent management for me, to reframe that again, it is how do I tick and click? How do you tick and click? And do we understand each other? And as a team, we are connected. And this is something that has to do with values. What kind of values do we have in the organization? These are the cultural aspects. And if you look at a group of people, there's always a little micro culture. Why is that? The most dominant talents, what we say, are so decisive in what kind of culture you have. Just think about it. If everybody has a preference to work on an eye level, and one person comes in with a mindset, I am the boss, what will happen? It will disrupt, it will influence the culture, and we will have friction, right? So how can we help this person? Because it's not a bad person. How can we help this person to understand how the others think so that he can adjust the way he's positioning himself, and that others understand sometimes he will do that. And we can help him to say like, hey, this is not our culture. So there comes the dialogue again. So the connection between the individual and the others is about a cultural aspect, the social cohesion. But for that, we need to understand each other. And what I also said, it is about learning. So if the individuals are learning and they're learning with each other, they are successful, right? They bring it to a certain kind of level. Just think about it, Sam and the others. If we are learning, can we then do the same job again and again and again without adaptation, without improving the way we work? If I use a comparison to that, my daughter is now in the 10th grade. She does well. At the end of the year, she is assessed. Perfect job. What do we say? As a result, you get a new saddle for your horse and you can do grade 10 again? Or are we allowing her to go to grade 11? And what do we do with our employees? And how, as a compensation and benefit, are we really rewarding the people or are we rewarding the seat? So what I would say, you have to allow people to grow from what they've learned. Otherwise, they stand still. And this is, I think, a big issue in retention. Now comes another part. So if you have the one, the I, the us, the success, there's something lacking here. And that is the adaptability of the organization. What is your operating system? And I don't mean success factors or your financial program. I mean the way we work with each other, your processes, the agreements we have. If you don't change that, then there is no innovation because then people are restricted. So for me, these four elements, I, success, we, organization. And the bridge between it are talents. And on the horizontal, it is the connection. And in the middle, it is the learning, the individual learning and the organizational learning. So for me, this quadrant is capturing integral talent management. And where does HR come in? You already said it before. It is like facilitating, inspiring, listening, having a dialogue. What can we do in order to make sure that line management has the tools, the skills, the knowledge, but also the liberty and the obligation to make sure that people are blossoming. Does that make sense?
Nice. It does. Nicely said there, Andre. So I know that there's a lot of our listeners out there that are wondering, how do I learn more about the TMA method? How do I learn more about integral talent management? I know that TMA has a variety of free sources. What would you recommend people as a first start?
Of course, we have a lot of. There's something else to talent management that I didn't mention, and that's what we call competence management. We just talked about skills and what are the human skills. We have an app that allows you to dive in and to say, like, this is a competency model. This is not rocket science, but it is a model for organization to say, like, what do I actually expect from my people on a behavioral element? This is not about KPIs. This is not about you have closed 6 contracts or you're capable of putting 100 bolts into a whatever. It's not about that. It's about the human capacity. And if you are clear in defining what you can do in building the model of the competencies and align it with the talents, so then you can really see, like, is this person, does he have the potential to deliver this kind of behavior that will bring us success? That will also help to have a more fair compensation and benefit program, because then you can actually say, we are appreciating your human skills, your talents and your human skills, instead of you're on this seat and if you are a top performer you get 5% in addition, and if you are an average performer 2%, and if you're under, you're out. That is not it. People are working together. We have to look in a different way to our workforce.
So Andre, we have a question from Jorge on online here. It says he's asking the difference between a data-driven versus data insight. Is that the words you use there?
Yeah, I said data-driven or data-informed. If you look at what we are collecting now for data, it is about, of course, the KPIs that we have defined. It is about the sick rates, or all these what I would call cold data. But we have to combine it with the warm data, what I call the human data. Is it fair to say, like, you didn't reach your KPI, for example? Is that fair? Because that's the cold. If you do not understand the context, was he facilitated well enough? Did he had all the talents on board to accomplish the KPIs? Was there collaboration? Because in our world we are so interdependent of each other. So if you are a line manager, do you have the cold and the warm data together so that you get into a comfortable bath where you can take a humanized decision towards your staff? Because you don't want to be in the hot tub, you burn your feet, you don't want cold, although that might be good for your health once in a while, but you need the hot tub, the warm bath. And this is what I mean with make sure that your management is data informed so that they can take human decisions.
Excellent.
And the data should be available for line management, not on the top, where analysts analyze the data, the hard data, and saying, like, oh, compared to the production level or compared to the sick rate, or, it needs to be rooted, it needs to be grounded in the bottom of the organization.
Great. Well, I know that we're.
Sam,
Yes.
Does this resonate with you?
It does. It does. Thank you so much, Andre. I really appreciate you bringing this concept to our audience today and talking about the importance of integral talent management and the desperate need for businesses of any size to think about putting this into place and making sure that their people are well taken care of for greater not just a greater attraction of these important talents of their organization, but retaining their top performers and developing their people overall. So thank you for bringing this to us. So Andre, is there any last minute thoughts that you would like our listeners to walk away with today?
So my connection is, I think, at this point. Sorry for the technical issue.
No problem at all, Andre.
Yeah.
So I guess what we'll do is we'll go ahead and close today's session. And I just want to thank you, Andre, for joining us today and sharing your wisdom.
You're very well.
Boys.
You're very well. That you always offer your clients and your audience a first experience, so they can go to the App Store and find our free apps on competence management or on career advice management, or there's a lot. There are 4 apps, but I'm sure that you are willing to have a proper dialogue with your clients to help them out. And again, my message is like, bring humanity back in business.
That's right. Thank you so much, Andre. And so if anybody would like to learn more about the TMA method, please reach out to us at sam@compteam.net. We're happy to take you through a demo. And there's also the TMA website, TMA method website out there, just a simple Google search away, and you can sign up for a demo through there. So thank you, Andre, once again for joining us on the show today. And we'll see everyone next week on the People Strategy Forum. All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.